We'll be teaching you how to do the color meshing technique using the Woolie. So watch the instructional video to learn how to get professional looking results. Okay, now we get to the fun part. We get to take this plain white wall and make it look fabulous with the color meshing technique. Now the process begins with this big brush. And the reason why we use the big brush is because it moves the paint rapidly. I'm going to use the same brush for all of the colors that I'm going to use. I don't need to rinse it out or anything like that in between. This is not a fussy process. So I take my big brush and I'm going to dip it into my first paint color. And I'm going to apply it to the surface in heavy splotches, like so. Now we're working on about a 4 foot by 4 foot area at a time. We're a little bit limited because of our window space here, but we've applied the paint in heavy splotches, such to the point that they're actually beginning to drip. That's an essential part of the process, because if you apply your paints nice and even and smooth, that's not going to stay wet. This will stay wet. I'm going to take my same brush and dip it into my next color and apply more splotches. Now what we really look like we're trying to do here is break every rule for painting, and we probably are, but the outcome is fabulous. Now, as I'd mentioned, you only need to use 2 colors, but you can use as many as 6. So I'm going to go ahead and add more paint color to the surface, so I'm going to add my 3rd color. You don't need to have equal quantities of all the colors either. You can have a little bit more of one color or another color here or there. It's entirely up to you. Once my paint's on the surface, I'm going to go ahead and take my brush and spread the paint out. Now there's no special magic or talent required to do this. Anybody can do this. Now right now it looks like a big mess, but soon it's going to be beautiful. If you find yourself near an edge, a corner, or a ceiling line, just take your brush and run it along those areas. That's why we applied our masking tape, to protect those areas. Now comes the fun part. We're going to take the Woolie, and we've already primed it. I'm going to take the Woolie, and I'm just going to begin tapping. And what happens is the paint colors swirl together to create the illusion of depth and texture. It's important to know that there is no actual texture buildup happening on this wall. When the surface dries, it will still be smooth. How much you tap will determine the amount of texture illusion that you leave behind. So if you tap a little bit, it's going to be a little bit more textured looking. Tap it out more, and it'll be more muted. Now if you'll notice the edge that we applied the paint on when we were priming the Woolie, that snuggles right up into next to our edges and corners and ceiling lines. So we don't need to take other little tools to fit along these areas. Also too, you don't need to worry about how hard you're tapping or light. You don't need to worry about rotating while you tap. That's just not a factor with this technique. So I'm going to go ahead and tap it out. Now what happens sometimes is when you're working on a wall, you're rather close, and it's hard to see what your end result looks like. So paint your area, stand back, take a look. Maybe there are certain areas that you'd like to tap out a little bit more, or perhaps maybe you'd like to see a little bit more depth or texture illusion on there. That's easily done. Just take your brush and add more of one color or another color until you're happy with the end result. This is very forgiving. It is the fastest and easiest way to do decorative painting because no new base coats required. You can use 2 to 6 colors in one coat and no edging tools. Now, we're using regular latex wall paint. There are no glazes in this. What that means is that we can start and stop at any given point in the middle of a wall. For example, if I want to sit back and have a cup of coffee and watch the paint dry, I can do that. And it's okay if these edges dry out. Because we're using regular latex wall paint, you can do that. When you're ready to come back and paint the adjoining area in with it, it's ready for you. So I'm going to go ahead and continue painting the wall. Same brush, dip it into my next color, and apply more splotches. It's pretty hard to screw this one up, but if you are going to make a mistake, again, the biggest mistake that you're going to make is not applying enough paint to the surface where you actually see drips. It's kind of a strange concept at first if you've never done this technique before. Now watch closely. The paint actually begins to drip on the wall. So again, once my paint's on the surface, take the brush, spread the paint out. There's no magic or special talent required. If you find yourself along your edges or corners or ceiling lines, run your brush along there and spread it out. Now here's an area that we've already blended this area, and we want to get the adjoining area to make a nice smooth transition. So you spread the paint out across that area where one area stops and starts. Then you're going to take the Woolie and stipple it down so that it makes a nice transition. Like so. This way, you get professional looking results. You can't really see where you started and stopped. Now if you'll notice the edge, that snuggles right up into next to our edges and corners and ceiling lines. So we don't need to take other little tools to fit along these areas. The little Woolie is designed for areas that you find that the big Woolie doesn't fit. Some areas like this, oftentimes you'll find these in kitchens and bathrooms or behind door frames. Just simply apply your paint colors. If you want to, you can even use a small brush. Take the little Woolie, and I'm just going to begin tapping. There, now I'm happy. So, quick and easy way to do the color meshing process.